83% of founders report living in constant burnout. That's a crazy statistic for you. Let me show you a little bit more. And if you go into tech, 70% of tech founders are experiencing high levels of burnout. 54% report burning out in the past 12 months. 90% of founders cited energy depletion, not just a financial failure, as the primary reason for leaving. So as you can see here, this is a massive problem. And I attribute this problem mainly to how you are working, how you are prioritizing your priorities, and ultimately, how are you executing on a day-to-day basis with everything that is going on. For the most part, when it comes to, say, executing tasks, goals, things of that nature, you're just adding all these various different tasks and stuff onto your plate, and then you're wondering, why don't you have time for anything else? You're working really late. You can't really seem to manage how to get out of what you're currently stuck in, right? So it just feels like this constant hamster wheel of doing all these different tasks and activities where you just feel trapped. And the real true goal here of productivity isn't, say, to do more work per se. And I'm not saying to not work at all. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, how can you reframe how you're approaching work and everything that you're tackling on a day-to-day basis? And it's really just about asking better questions. Because if it takes you the same thing where you can do it literally in 1 day or 1 hour, but you're letting it prolong for 7 days, a full entire month that you can literally just have answered in 1 day or by tomorrow, then you're letting this extra mental baggage live with you. It's still draining you, even though it's just in the background, right? It's like having an extra tab open on your computer. It's still there. It's still not fully closed. It's taking a bit of your mental cognitive load. And if you don't close the loop or do something about it, then other things can arise in the meantime where they just stack up on top of each other. And it just feels like you're spinning many plates at the same time. So I'm going to challenge you, if you're watching this video, how you can compress a full year's worth of goals and activities of what you do on a yearly basis into 30 days. And while that does sound impossible and it does sound very hard, it's actually not meant to sound impossible or very difficult, because you're asking a different set of questions. And when you ask a different set of questions, you can refocus your priorities and what you're actually working on. Because if you just laser focus on something specific, what you know is a priority, what you know is actually going to move the things forward. Because let's be real with ourselves. If, say, you're in a specific business model or you're doing specific things, not everything requires the same amount of attention. And if it does require any attention, how many things are you realistically balancing on a day-to-day basis? There's probably like only a handful of things, maybe just 1 to 2 things really that matter the most. And then everything else, it doesn't really matter. Or you could put something, some system, a person, a automation, an agent, or whatever in place of it, so it doesn't occupy your attention and your time. When you refocus yourself with powerful questions like, how can I compress a year's worth of progress or goals into 30 days? You start thinking differently, because now it's about, okay, if I had to skip all the BS that's involved in the middle of doing something, what are the actual key things that matter? And when you just focus on the essential of what actually matters, everything else becomes non-necessary. And it doesn't mean, say, like customer support or, say, some of these other things that just need to be handled in, say, a business model or whatever you're working on, even if you're not watching this for business, right? Just even for your personal life. But everything else becomes non-essential. And what actually does become essential is the thing that actually moves you forward. You see progress, and then you can take yourself to level 2, level 3. Because let's be realistic. Like, let's say you're trying to lose weight, right? And not just lose weight, you're trying to get ripped. Is it possible to get ripped in 30 days? Depends on how much you weigh, right? But the thing is, you can definitely go into an insane caloric deficit where you get extremely lean in 30 days, depending on how much you're working out, what you're dieting, how much fat you're burning, how much muscle you're putting on. And it's very realistic that depending on your body composition, you can get pretty damn ripped in 30 days if you follow the right protocol. So it's the same thing, because if you're trying to get ripped over a year, it's going to take you a year to get ripped, right? And you're going to have cheat meals in the meantime. Maybe you're going to fall off your diet. Maybe you're just going to get lazy with your diet, or just not losing enough weight per month. You know what I mean? It's just going to be like this very elongated process. But in 30 days, like right before summer or right before spring, you can definitely do that. And the same thing applies here. I know that wasn't really a sort of business analogy, but the same thing applies here. If you can just force yourself to focus on the main things, so like in dieting, it's really just being in a caloric deficit and what you're consuming. Whereas in business, it really just depends on what model you're in, what actually works for your business model, what do you have to focus on. Like, let's say you're running some sort of development agency. So really just 2 things matter: client attraction and fulfillment. And the thing is, fulfillment is probably the most easiest thing, especially too if it's like nothing crazy. Like if you're just creating web apps, whatever, you can easily find developers, or you can even have AI generate and produce apps, web apps for you. Whereas, say, The marketing, generating leads, creating killer offers, that's a more difficult skill because a lot of people can build, but not a lot of people can sell. And everything really just starts if you can sell. So if you could just remove yourself from building and doing all the things, especially to if you can systemize the approach to just generating leads, to going viral online, to producing marketable assets that actually attract people to you to work with you, that is an extremely powerful skill. And if you can train other people to do it, to remove your time from that aspect, then that's great too. But this should be the only thing you should be focusing on, nothing else. Just generating leads or even closing the leads. Nothing else really matters at the end of the day. And this is why if you go into tech or something like that, a lot of founders and people, they can build, but then they struggle when it comes to, say, selling. So that's why you hear this word in tech that if you can build and you can sell, like, you're golden. And that's very true because a lot of people, they just like building in tech. Whereas, say, selling and marketing, that's a whole different game. You got to understand funnels, you got to understand marketing, you got to understand different platforms, you got to understand consumer psychology. So it's like this whole different skill, and it requires a different sort of personality type in order to understand that. So it's really here not just to play a business or just to play your role in whatever hat you're wearing and say a startup in a business or whatever, just to say you have all these things just so you can say you're busy, right? Like I hear all the time people are like, hey, I'm busy, I don't have time, I can't do this, I'm doing so much stuff right now, I feel stuck. But you're choosing still to do it. And at the end of the day, you're pretty much just creating another job for yourself if you're still stuck in the weeds of everything you're doing and you're not allowing yourself to ask better questions. We'll get to the moment of like when and why should you ask questions just in a bit, but it's also important at some point that you want to reflect on everything you're doing, because if you're just constantly in motion, and you can't just kind of pick your head up above the water to kind of see and assess what's going on, that's also a big reason why you feel stuck, because you're not actually ever pausing to look up and see what the heck you're even doing. Because if you keep on doing that, you could just waste a lot of time on just activities that don't actually move you forward. They could be low leverage, they could be totally sidetracking you. Maybe you are easily distracted with, say, phone calls, emails, texts, social media. You don't even have the right environment set up for yourself. And this all prevents you from achieving a lot more that you can do in 1 hour that it takes people 7 days, or in this case for the video, what you can achieve in 30 days versus, say, a whole year. So in my opinion, when a lot of people are talking about time management and how you should manage your time, it's not really you going out here and trying to find the right time management tip. For me, it's really about refocusing what is the priority and then creating the systems in order to maximize as much time and attention into the priorities and ruthlessly cutting out everything else. Anything else, unless you created the first thing that matters for the day, or you got those like 2-3 things out of the way, only then you can allow it to do all this extra tasks. Otherwise, a simple but powerful compression technique that you can use to see how much more you can truly get done is if you forced yourself to only work 3-4 hours per day, and then for the rest of the day, you're literally not allowed to work. As painful as that sounds, it will truly make you focus on what actually matters, and everything else is just a bonus. You don't have to do it, but it's a bonus if you do it. And the crazy thing is, as many variables and things that are actually going on in your life or your operation or whatever the heck you're doing, it takes a lot of time just to even optimize one thing. Like imagine if you have this marketing funnel on the internet, that takes a lot of optimizations, from, say, just the attraction offer to getting people to convert, to booking the person, to getting the person on a call, to then closing the person, to then fulfilling the order, the onboarding, the activation, to the email follow-up sequences, whether they converted or they didn't. Like there's so many variables that already go into that. And if you're going beyond that to, say, focus on another business, to, say, maybe focus on another project, another side thing that maybe you think is fun or whatever, there's so many variables that are just consuming and taking all your attention. And then you're wondering, why do you feel stuck? Why can't you just lift your head above everything that is going on and then have time to actually enjoy life or do something else other than all these things that are draining you? I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to force you to stop doing what you're doing in terms of just doing work, but more so reprioritizing everything so you can only focus on the priority, on the main things that actually move the ball forward. Because at the end of the day, like if you could just do one thing and just pull a lever and that helps you achieve all your goals, wouldn't you just want to pull one lever every single day versus, say, 10 that don't even make sense? Like imagine there's just one lever you have to pull every single day and everything else doesn't matter. It could be 9 other levers and they don't do anything. But if there's one that you knew that if you pull this lever, all the magic happens, all the customers come to you, all your problems are solved. That is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to find out one lever that matters where only we can do it, and everything else should either be eliminated, delegated, or automated. And this goes to the next question of what's the most highest leverage activity or impact activity I can do on a day-to-day basis. So this is what I meant by the lever analogy. I recommend 2 books for helping you refocus your priorities. First one is The One Thing, and the other one is on essentialism. So they teach basically the same concept that I'm talking about here. In short, The One Thing talks about how can you just focus on this one thing, one priority, one goal, whatever it is, and then just ruthlessly cut out everything else. Because if you can get really good at one thing, just become really good at focusing on the one thing that matters, everything else is just secondary. It doesn't matter. You don't have to add all this extra time, because if you just come in, show up for work for 2, 3, 4 hours, just get this one thing done, and then once you're done, and then everything else is just moving smoothly and still growing without you, then you've done a pretty good job. And essentialism is really just about cutting everything out. Same thing, pretty much, but just removing everything until it breaks, and then only filling the gap if the thing breaks to continue doing it. And I don't recall if that comes from the book, actually. That's actually a tactic I learned from Elon Musk, not personally, but just from the internet, obviously. And I love the thing that he does, and that is you want to keep on removing things from your life until things break, because once you realize and you've isolated the thing that breaks in your process or your time management, or you realize that, hey, like this is unsustainable unless I have to do this, then only then should you keep it. Otherwise, you will eventually find out that there's a lot of bloat happening that didn't actually move anything forward, and it actually didn't even matter at all. There's these different kinds of zones of where you find yourself to be the most productive, where you find yourself to excel at. So there's these 4 zones: zone of incompetence, zone of excellence, zone of competence, zone of genius. Anything that is in your zone of incompetence, you just don't want to do it, because it's like, let's say for me, I'm not really good with instruments per se, right? It's just something I never really attracted towards. I mean, I love music, but I don't like playing it, you know what I mean? So the thing is, I don't want to do any activities that really have to do with that. Whereas say for zone of excellence, you may be good at the thing, but it doesn't really bring you joy. Or say zone of competence, you're good at this thing, but it doesn't bring you the joy that say you maybe get in your zone of genius. So it's like, if you ever find yourself in a flow state of an activity that you just love doing, you're really good at it, and you just want to keep on doing it as much as possible every single day, that's your zone of genius. Everything else that doesn't put you in your zone of genius every single day, you want to cut it out, you want to remove it, and you want to only focus on things that actually put you in the zone of genius. Because there's some crazy statistics on flow state. When you get into the flow state of when you just lose your sense of time, your sense of self, you feel like you're performing at your peak levels. The thing is, it's crazy, but your productivity increases by around 400%, right? 400%, you're way more creative, you're in this crazy flow state, and you can get an insane amount done in a fraction of the time of what it would take you if, say, you were doing something in your zone of incompetence. But obviously, if you're learning a new skill, it's not like you're gonna be in flow state right off the bat, you know what I mean? So it does take a point until you reach that, but at some point when you are in that sort of state, that flow state, you lose your sense of self. Time just moves. You're in the groove, you're doing your thing, you're in flow. The words are coming out easily. Or maybe let's say you're solving problems in a very unique way. You've probably been in flow. You probably know what I'm talking about. So we want to do that, and that ultimately leads us to finding activities that have asymmetric rewards. So unless this is like a hobby, this is something you like to do on the weekends where you know there's no clear ROI, because we're trying to optimize for clear things that provide us an ROI in our business or professional life. So unless it's a hobby or something you just purely enjoy doing, then don't focus on it. See if you can figure out how you can automate, delegate, or delete the task entirely from your life. Because what we want to do ultimately is find activities where if we do these activities, they provide us asymmetric rewards. So for instance, me producing content right now, just as an example, I know if I produce this content, it's always going to be working for me 24/7, 365 every single year. And I don't have to really do anything else other than let the algorithm push it. Whether this video flops or whether it actually gets pushed out, it doesn't matter, because I just create it once and then the algorithm just pushes it out for me. And I talked about in my previous videos, but I do mention that there are 2 very powerful forms of leverage. So one is media, and this doesn't come from me, right? Like this framework, but 2 powerful forms of leverage. There's media and there's code. Because if you can create a code one time and just replicate it at scale, you just build it once and then you can scale the hell out of it. The other thing is media, the same thing. You create it once, you put it on a platform, and it just lives. It's out there. Maybe the algorithm will push it, maybe not. But you want to find ways where you can have asymmetric rewards per unit of time that you put into anything. And all that means is, say, if I put 1 unit of time, I can get 100 units of output back, which is ultimately the reward we want. And another thing I do want to bring up is your environment. Is your environment optimized? Like, are you constantly getting distracted by people, your notifications, your screens, your tabs, like how many tabs you have open? Are you easily accessible or not? All of these things, like your environment, how it is optimized. And it could go really deep into, say, like lighting, scent, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because to even say, if you have a window right behind your computer or wherever you're working, because that can easily distract you. You can just start losing yourself and looking out the window. All these things really matter. Like for me, I used to have a different setup where I was easily able to like look out the window and do things, whatever. But now it's just purely with a wall against my computer. And it's literally just this, like when I'm looking at my workstation, whatever, then there's literally nothing else other than the screen and the primary thing that I'm focusing on. So it really also depends on everything that you're allowing into your environment, say to the music, to how accessible you are, to whether or not you allow yourself to get distracted from task to task, or what kind of systems you have in place, whether you easily finish a task or if, say, you get distracted. All these things matter in terms of your environment setup to how you're choosing to prioritize activities. And if you don't do anything about it, then there's a reason why there are some people literally where they can get more work done per hour than you could get done in a couple of days. And it's really just about focus at the end of the day. That's all this video really is. It's just about knowing how to focus and then knowing how to prioritize your focus. And then I did mention about reviewing your week, days, months. So I have a system in place where I review, or I pretty much just reverse engineer everything, like my 6-month goals, 1-year goal, then a quarterly review, and then a monthly review, and then a weekly review, and then a day-to-day like micro review. It's not like I'm doing like these crazy full audit reviews every single week, every single month or whatever. And they definitely do graduate and scale in terms of like how big the review is, but like on a day-to-day basis, it's more so like a general reflection. On a weekly basis, it's more so being able to kind of step back from everything that's been going on throughout the week, making sure I'm tackling the activities, the work that actually matters, and see if that aligns with, say, the monthly goal. And then seeing if the monthly goals align with the yearly goals. Like, right, if I'm reviewing my month, I'm trying to see if I'm moving forward towards my 6-month, quarterly, or yearly goals. So when you reverse engineering, you literally just work backwards, just intelligent design for your life. Then what you can do is you can always have this sort of constant reminder that is scheduled on your schedule that, hey, I'm going to look at my time. I'm going to audit my time. I'm going to audit what I'm doing, how my activities are actually moving things forward for my life, or are they not? And if they're not, then you obviously want to audit that because that's a huge problem. And the impossible constraint that I want you to take is how can you achieve 1 year's worth of goals in 30 days? Because when you just ask that simple question, you're literally going to reprioritize everything you're doing. A lot of things are not going to matter anymore. A lot of things you'll try to figure out how to either eliminate completely before you even automate it. Some things you'll look for automation solutions, say like softwares, maybe say agents, maybe say something else that exists in the market. And then lastly, if there are still some things that you're still tied to, how can you get a person in the loop to take care of it? Because when you can refocus your mind, what your brain focuses on attention, so just literally just compressing everything into a 30-day urgency time box. When you can compress into this time box, now it's like, okay, what do I have to do literally this week in order to get this by 30 days? What do I have to do next week? What do I have to do by the next week? And it just kind of follows like that. And all it really is at the end of the day is just priorities, because if you can say no to everything else and just the hell yes to one thing that actually matters and excites you, helps you make progress towards what you're trying to achieve, then that's all that matters. And the thing here isn't really just about looking for all these different sort of productivity hacks, because there's so many of them out there. There's so many every single week. There's some new productivity guy out there. And it's more so for me, at least, if you just want to simplify and just have simple frameworks, is just asking better questions and then refocusing how you are prioritizing things on a day-to-day basis. And then everything else after you start asking these questions and reprioritizing your priorities is just going to arise from that, like the systems, what information you should be searching for, what kind of goals you should be achieving on a week-to-week or day-to-day basis, what kind of better questions you should be asking. Like all this stuff will just arise from these two things, just reprioritizing yourself and asking better questions. Because now you've put your mindset into a search mode. You're looking for the solutions. You're looking for the answers for the right people, for the right videos on the internet, for the right books, for the right mentors, for the right targets to attract. What do you have to do? Like if you literally just reverse engineer everything and then you ask better focusing questions, everything else will just spawn from that. I want to make this quick video on priorities, on focus, because you truly can make a year's worth of progress in 30 days. And it really just comes down to focusing on the only thing that matters. And then once you've compressed your whole year goal into 30 days, then I challenge you to do it again in the next month. Thanks for watching the video. See you in another one.